Hi, I'm Joe Neal. I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I've been studying birds in Arkansas for a half a century. And because the climate is warming, we're seeing quite a few changes in birds. And a lot of these changes are really obvious in winter. We're seeing birds in winter in northwest Arkansas that we've never seen much before in the past. And I want to show you some pictures of these birds taken right here in northwest Arkansas and just discuss how warming climate is actually affecting bird distribution. So, the title of my program is Some Birds Not Expected in Northwest Arkansas in Winter. So, you may be curious about how we know about where birds ought to be in winter in northwest Arkansas, or for that matter, in the United States, or for that matter, actually all over North and Central America. Well, this is all data based on Christmas bird counts, where citizen volunteers go out and count birds all over these places. So you see all these little round dots with birds in them. Those are all places that have Christmas bird counts. And so this is data drawn from them. And by the way, these counts have been held for more than a century. So the count that's held in Fayetteville, Arkansas was organized by Doug James in 1961, and it's been held every year with one exception in mid December. It's sponsored by Northwest Arkansas Audubon Society, and all the data goes into a national database, and you can get online and see all that data yourself. So, to give you a few examples, just a few of the birds that we've seen over the years. This is a common nesting bird in around northwest Arkansas. It's called blue-gray gnatcatcher, but it ought to be way south of here in the middle of December. So the people that did the Bentonville Christmas bird count in 2019 found a blue-gray gnatcatcher. And here's a distribution map that's based on all that data that I showed you collected by people all over North America and Central America. And you can see that the blue-gray gnatcatcher in winter ought to be where it's purple and blue. And yet we had one in Arkansas, in northwest Arkansas last year. And another real surprising bird, here's a shorebird. It's called long-billed dowitcher. And here is where the long-billed dowitcher should be in winter, or where we expect them. So along the Gulf Coast in Mexico, but we actually had one in northwest Arkansas. A bird we've seen more often in winter, but still a very rare bird in winter, is the catbird. And we've actually found them on the Christmas bird count 4 times since 2010. So we're seeing more and more, and we'd never had one in northwest Arkansas in midwinter before 1983. And here's the same type map. You can see where the birds are in summer, the breeding season, and where they typically are in winter. So they're going further north. And here was a real shocker. It's called American Redstart. And look where the blue is, the Caribbean and Central America. And really not very close to northwest Arkansas at all. And yet this bird was at Lake Fayetteville last winter. And here's a Wilson's warbler that we've now found twice during the winter in northwest Arkansas. And look where it should be in winter. So when I say that again, I'm talking about mid-December, December and January. Mostly southern Mexico, Central America, occasionally on the Gulf Coast, but not typically in northwest Arkansas. And yet, we've got a couple of recent records. And here was a real shocker: a Louisiana water thrush on the spillway at Lake Fayetteville on January the 23rd, 2014. And look where it typically is. They're not even along the Gulf Coast in December or January. So that bird was way north of its typical range. And this is a bird that we got the first record in 1981, and it was an orange crowned warbler, and I remember that bird, and it caused quite a shock because we'd never gotten one on the Fayetteville Christmas bird count in 20 previous counts. So you can see its range again. It's way south of us during winter, but we're now seeing them more frequently in winter around Arkansas. And this is a common yellowthroat. It's a fairly common breeding bird in summer here, but not in winter. But now we've got a couple of records in winter here for that bird. And once again, you can kind of see the range. They're present all year on the Gulf Coast, so that includes winter, but not 500 miles north of the Gulf Coast in winter. And here's a real startling thing. This is a summer tanager, and this is at a feeder up in Rogers. And just in 1 year, December 15th, 2015 to February 2016, we found 11 summer tanagers, and they were all going to suet feeders. And there's currently one in Fayetteville right now at least. And I'm talking to you in the middle of December. And here's where summer tanagers historically have spent the winter. Notice that? Mexico, Central America, and northern South America, but not in Arkansas. Here was a really neat bird that showed up on the Fayetteville Christmas bird count last year. It's called clay-colored sparrow. It's way north of its typical range in winter when it was here in the middle of December. And the big shocker was this one. January 27th, 2020, a Cape May warbler. And look at the range. They certainly migrate through Arkansas. This map doesn't show that, but we definitely get Cape May warblers in Arkansas migration. Not a lot of them, but they are never here in winter. So if you were down in Cuba or Central America, you'd find them. So what was that bird doing here in the middle of winter? Ruby-crowned kinglets. Just a few little data points just for funsies. In the period 1961 to 1970, they showed up at 0.03 per party hour on the Fayetteville Christmas bird count. By 2011 to 2018, that we were getting them at 1.6, which is at a rate more than 5 times as high, which means that they're wintering in higher numbers further north, just in that period. And you're not going to be able to read all this, so don't even try. You can just look at it. But Arkansas Audubon compiled a list of Arkansas birds that have shifted the center of their winter abundance over the past 40 years. And the distance, the shift distance, is expressed in miles. So just on the upper right, you see ruby-crowned kinglet, and it shifted to the north by 45 miles in the middle of for winter distribution. In other words, as the climate's changing, these birds can winter further north. Audubon issued a big report on this, Survival by Degrees, and this is a really interesting report. If you have questions about how climate change is affecting nature, this is a good place to start because there's a lot of data about birds because of all those Christmas bird counts, including the one in Fayetteville. And it's possible to say quite a bit about what's happening with birds. And we now know that some birds can shift to the north, like ruby-crowned kinglets, and they do okay. But not all birds can make that shift, and they're going to be in trouble. So it's a little bit controversial talking about climate change. I know that you kind of get the partisan political divide in the discussion between Democrats and Republicans and all that sort of thing. But I think Greta Thunberg says it pretty well. Entire ecosystems are collapsing, and the future generations are watching what we do now about changing climate. And this is a blue-gray gnatcatcher that was up by Centerton on December 31st, 2019. And that concludes my program. Hope you can look at some of these resources from National Audubon. There's some resources posted on the website of Northwest Arkansas Audubon Society, and of course there's lots of information available about climate change. Thanks a lot for watching.